An old man passed away, and a young boy slipped his phone into the coffin before it was buried. To the boy's shock, he started getting texts from the old man's number. Turns out the phone had a chilling new power. It could make wishes come true. The boy was tired of being picked on his school. Desperate, he texted the phone the next day. The bully was gone for good. So where did the phone get its eerie power? In the small town, Maine, young Craig lives with his dad, who has been deeply saddened since his wife passed away. They attend church together every Sunday, and Craig often reads the Bible aloud during the service. It's during one of these services that reclusive billionaire Mr. Harrigan notices Craig and later visits him with a job offer. Since his eyesight is failing, he wants to hire the boy to read books to him. Craig isn't sure why he's chosen over other, perhaps more skilled town kids, but he's not about to miss the chance to earn some extra money. Harrigan's mansion sits on the edge of town, and Craig walks there 3 times a week to read to Harrigan and enjoy tea prepared by the housekeeper, Edna. Some of the books are difficult for his age, but Craig gradually learns to grasp them and enjoys the thought-provoking discussions they inspire. He also enjoys exploring the mansion's lavish rooms and Harrigan's flower collection. But there's a locked closet. He's forbidden to enter. Harrigan says it's full of terrible secrets. Sometimes Craig helps with odd jobs around the house, like shoveling snow, but Harrigan insists on reading the newspapers himself to stay informed about financial news. The more time Craig spends with Harrigan, the more curious he becomes about the man's past. One afternoon, he finally gives in and searches for him online. It turns out Harrigan was once a businessman known for his ruthlessness and aggressive business tactics, which explains why he's not well liked. He never married or had children, and his few relatives don't get along with him, leaving him to live a very isolated life. Since Craig has always felt guilty about his mother's death, he feels an unexpected sympathy for Harrigan. Now that Craig works for him, Harrigan sends him cards with lottery tickets for special occasions, but Craig never wins. 5 years pass, and Craig grows into a teenager. His age hasn't stopped him from visiting Harrigan 3 times a week to read. He's only missed one day when he was sick with the flu. Though he was ill, Craig still felt guilty, suspecting their time together is the highlight of Harrigan's week. Since Harlow lacks a high school, Craig has to take a daily bus to the nearest city when it's time for him to attend. It's quite a shock for a small-town kid like him to learn about cliques and social rules, especially since most kids have phones, and he doesn't. Still, he manages to make some friends. The biggest shock of his first day, however, is being approached by a bully named Kenny. Kenny expects Craig to shine his shoes in the bathroom, apparently, the newbie's job. Craig refuses, and their argument draws the attention of Miss Hart. True to his character, Craig doesn't snitch and tells her everything is fine. Unfortunately, Kenny doesn't see this as a favor. Once the teacher leaves, he promises to make Craig's life miserable. When Craig gets home, he keeps the incident to himself, but asks his dad for a phone. His request is denied. The next time Craig visits Harrigan, he asks if he ever encountered bullies or people who tried to take advantage of him at work, hoping for some advice. Harrigan explains he did, and he dealt with them all decisively. A few months pass, and Christmas brings 2 wonderful gifts. Craig's dad finally gets him a phone, and Harrigan's lotto ticket wins him $3,000. Craig's first call is to thank Harrigan for the gift. Harrigan explains it's just something he does for those he considers friends. Having a phone lets Craig connect with the popular kids and a girl he has a crush on. His new friends don't stop him from visiting Harrigan. This prompts the old man to ask why Craig keeps coming when he could have a social life now. Craig explains it's not out of obligation. He genuinely enjoys Harrigan's company, a response that moves Harrigan to tears. After hearing such a sad question, Craig convinces his dad to let him use part of the lotto money to buy Harrigan a phone. At first, the old man refuses, fearing he'll become addicted to it, hence why he doesn't have a TV or radio either. But he changes his mind when Craig shows him how he can track the stock market and news instantly, instead of waiting for the next day's paper. From then on, each visit begins with Craig teaching Harrigan new ways to use his phone before they start reading. This includes setting up his voicemail and choosing a nickname, Pirate King, a nod to the newspaper's old label for him. Craig also asks Harrigan for his favorite song to use as his ringtone. As weeks pass, Harrigan becomes obsessed with the phone, sometimes ignoring Craig's reading, but he's easily redirected. Craig worries when Harrigan needs an oxygen tank to sleep. He wonders why Harrigan chose such a small town, far from advanced medical care. Harrigan confesses he wanted to be somewhere people wouldn't demand things from him. In return, Craig talks about wanting to move to the big city to become a screenwriter. Harrigan disapproves, warning of the ruthless competition in that world. He makes Craig promise to deal with any enemies swiftly and without remorse if he takes the path. Craig is impressed by Harrigan's strength, even in his weakened state. He also feels sorry for him, discovering a drawer full of lottery tickets, proof of Harrigan's limited social circle. A few days later, Craig arrives while Edna is off. He lets himself in after Harrigan takes too long to answer the door. Sadly, it's not the phone that's distracting Harrigan. He has died in his chair, phone in hand. This is such a disturbing image, made worse when Craig sees Harrigan was about to call him. Crying, Craig calls his dad for help, then honors Harrigan with his favorite literary quote. An ambulance and police arrive. By the time Craig gets home, he's too exhausted to realize he still has Harrigan's phone. As a final goodbye, Craig texts Harrigan's phone, saying he'll miss their afternoons together. The funeral is sparsely attended, but Craig still reads from the Bible and slips Harrigan's phone into the suit pocket before the burial. Harrigan is buried near Craig's mother. His dad visits her weekly, but Craig himself only went once, as it felt like accepting she's gone forever. After the burial, Craig receives an envelope from Harrigan's estate manager. It contains a letter explaining what the old man left him in his will. While Harrigan disapproved of Craig's career goals, he still wanted to support him. He left $800,000 in trust to cover college and any future graduate studies. The most shocking part is a P.S. Harrigan says he'll miss their afternoons too, as if replying to Craig's text. Craig wants to dismiss it as coincidence, but he can't shake the feeling. Later, during a stormy night, he leaves Harrigan a voicemail. He thanks him for the gift, but admits he'd trade it all to have his friend back. The next morning, Craig wakes to the most chilling message. Harrigan has somehow texted back, though it's just a string of random letters. Terrified that Harrigan was buried alive, Craig asks his dad for help. His dad explains it's likely a prankster who cloned the number. Harrigan can't be alive. The hospital performed a full autopsy before releasing the body. Unsatisfied, Craig visits the cemetery and calls Harrigan's phone. He panics when he hears the ringtone coming from the grave. Afterward, Craig visits Edna at Harrigan's house. She confirms Harrigan left her and the gardener money as well. She agrees Harrigan was a good man, but you wouldn't want to cross him. She hints at how he dealt with the previous gardener who stole from him. After refusing to give details, Edna lets Craig take a memento. He chooses one of Harrigan's favorite flowers. Soon, Harrigan's house goes up for sale. Edna can stay temporarily to manage the property. Feeling better, Craig returns to school and enjoys his classes, especially those with the support of Miss Hart. Kenny leaves him alone for the most part. He eventually gets expelled for selling drugs on campus. Craig didn't snitch, but Kenny blames him anyway. Things improve further when Craig attends the winter dance with his crush. The perfect night is ruined when Kenny resurfaces to beat Craig up for snitching and threatens to kill him if he ever tells. Miss Hart finds him moments later and suspects Kenny. Craig denies it, wanting to avoid more trouble before graduation. When Craig gets home, he refuses to talk about what happened. His dad urges him to open up instead of bottling things up. Heeding his dad's advice, Craig calls Harrigan's phone and shares his fears with the voicemail. The next morning, the town is rocked by news. Kenny has been found dead. Craig is overwhelmed with guilt when he sees Kenny's grieving family, realizing even bullies are loved by someone. The guilt follows him throughout the day, distracting him from his lessons. Miss Hart offers comfort and reminds him not to blame himself. Touched by her understanding, Craig mentions ghosts. Miss Hart admits she avoids things like Ouija boards. Her grandma always said not all spirits are good. Later, Craig visits where Harrigan's old gardener lived. A neighbor tells him the man took his own life in his truck after Harrigan's firing ruined his chances of finding a new job. Curiosity compels Craig to check the abandoned truck. He's heartbroken to find a lottery ticket inside. Leaving, Craig notices unfinished graffiti insulting Harrigan on the garage door. That evening, Craig calls Harrigan's phone, asking for a sign if he was involved in Kenny's death. Immediately, his phone rings with Harrigan's number, and he receives another nonsensical message. The next day, Craig confesses everything to the local priest under the seal of confession. The priest agrees with Craig's dad, someone likely cloned the number. To ease Craig's guilt, the priest reveals Kenny's death was an accident. He'd been drinking heavily, slipped, and fallen while sneaking out. What the priest doesn't know is that Kenny's mouth had been full of shoe polish. The priest advises Craig to reassess his obsessive phone use. Craig does just that, getting a new, updated model. The store clerk explains the weird messages could have been a software glitch, what's known as a ghost in the machine. Contacts transfer to his new phone. When Craig tries calling Harrigan, it doesn't connect. He assumes it's finally over. At home, Craig tosses the old phone in the trash, then regrets it. He hides it in a box of mementos in his closet. Haunted by Kenny's death and his friendship with Harrigan, Craig graduates high school and heads to university in Boston. As he leaves home, He imagines seeing his mother alongside his dad, waving goodbye. University life is great, and Craig immerses himself in his studies. But soon, another tragedy strikes. He gets devastating news from his dad. Miss Hart has died in a car accident caused by a drunk driver named Dean. Heartbroken, Craig rushes home for Miss Hart's funeral and follows Dean's trial, which ends in disappointment. Despite Dean's history of drunk driving and lack of a license, he avoids jail, promising to enter rehab instead. Enraged, Craig returns to his childhood bedroom and retrieves his hidden box. While searching, he finds a flower crown his mother made for him as a child, another memento from after she died. Even this can't comfort him. Finding his old phone, he calls Harrigan's number and leaves a furious message wishing for Dean's death. It's a rash act born from grief. As Craig returns to his life, guilt gnaws at him. He obsessively checks for news about Dean, fearing his wish came true. A few days later, his fears realize Dean's death is in the news, though the cause is still unknown. Desperate for answers, Craig drives to the rehab center. Posing as a journalist, he bribes a nurse for information. They believe Dean took his own life. He was found in the shower with half a bar of soap lodged in his throat. Traces of shampoo in his system suggest he used it to make it easier to swallow. Disturbingly, the soap is the same brand Miss Hart used, and Dean's note quotes Harrigan's favorite song. The nurse's words hit Craig like a ton of bricks. He returns to his car and collapses, realizing he's become a murderer. Back at his old house, Craig finds another strange message from Harrigan. He recalls exploring the secret closet after Harrigan's death, finding only mementos of his childhood, especially his deceased mother. Craig believes Harrigan has always been as lonely as him, trying to stay connected. He visits Harrigan's grave, wondering if the messages were meant to tell him to stop. Tearfully thanking Harrigan and apologizing to his mom, Craig races to the quarry, contemplating ending his own life. Thankfully, a moment of clarity hits him. He hurls his old phone into the river, finally allowing Harrigan to rest in peace.